This is session 9 of the Community of Practice for Schoolyard Forests. And again, we're really grateful to have you here with us today. So my name is Mikaela Randolph. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Associate Director of Regional Programs here at Green Schoolyards America. I'm joined by my amazing colleague, Lauren McKenna, who is a Senior Program Manager here, also with Green Schoolyards America. She is working some tech support. Many of you also probably know Lauren from her amazing leadership with our Schoolyard Forest Design series that she's been leading for well over a year now. So today we are so pleased to have some guest speakers from Alabama. And just a little reminder around the community of practice is this aims to be a collegial space where folks that are working on schoolyard forestry are able to come together, ask important questions, learn from one another. So this really aims to be your space to kind of engage in that way. We aim to, after hearing from our guest speakers, to engage in some discussion. So as always, we encourage you to place your questions in the chat, and then we'll close out by sharing some updates and anything from our next upcoming community of practice. So just a reminder that this community of practice is part of the National Schoolyard Forest System. It's a large-scale initiative to increase tree canopy on public school grounds across the country to directly shade and protect pre-K through 12 students from extreme heat and rising temperatures due to climate change. It also helps to nurture biodiversity, can be a pathway to green job careers. California is the first state in the National Schoolyard Forest System, but there's also we're looking at Nevada and New Mexico joining as part of the National Schoolyard Forest System. And as I said, these meetings will typically happen on the third Thursday of each month at 11 a.m. Pacific time. They will generally be recorded as this session is being recorded today, and then you'll get a notification when that recording is available to you, and you can rewatch or share with your colleagues that weren't able to make it today. And our next session will be March 20th, featuring schoolyard forest examples from Adam Beanstalk and some of his work, both in the States here, but also in Canada. There are myriad of resources available to you to support your schoolyard forest programs. We've listed some of them here. They're all available on our website in our forest resource library. So if you're not familiar with these resources or you feel like you might be seeing them for the first time, then I definitely invite you to visit our schoolyard forest system resource library, and there's a myriad of resources that can help to support your efforts. So, and you'll be hearing how our speaker uses some of these resources as well. And with that, I'm happy to begin turning it over to our speakers. We are going to be hearing from Alabama Forestry Foundation, Chris Erwin, who's the Executive Vice President of the Alabama Forestry Foundation. In this moment, I'm recognizing that I don't have my bio notes pulled up, so I apologize, Chris, if I'm shortchanging any of your accolades. But I will say that Chris is a passionate forestry expert with a diverse background that brings him to this work. He's been working in the space for well over 20 years. We'll also be joined by Lamar Dewberry, who is representing Clayton County in Alabama. He's a retired agriscience teacher, a community champion, and has been recognized by the Alabama Forestry Foundation as, I think, like champion of the year, community champion of the year, or something to that effect. I apologize, Lamar, also for not having your accolades, but both of these speakers are amazing champions of this work. And one of the beauties of this community of practice is we really are looking to highlight a diverse range of schoolyard forestry and what this looks like across the country. And while here in California, much of this work has been driven by climate resiliency or extreme heat mitigation, what you'll see throughout this series is that the impetus for this work looks a little bit different, but the outcomes and the benefits in many cases are very much the same. So without further ado, I'm happy to turn it over to Chris Erwin to give some talking points. I will also share that we're trying something a little new, trying some things out in order to really create this feel of a community of practice. Um, we're not always going to necessarily share screens or share like a formal presentation, but really want to have the opportunity to engage in just conversation and make it feel more intimate. So again, as Chris and other speakers are speaking today, feel free to ask questions in the chat and engage in that way. So without further ado, Chris, it's all you.
Thank you so much, Mikaela. I really appreciate your help. So as Mikaela mentioned, I am a forester in Alabama, and foresters are, they go into forestry because they love being outside and they're not very comfortable dealing with people. And so public speaking is one of the most terrifying things for foresters. And so just want to thank Mikaela and Aisha and Lauren for holding my hand as we work through this process and getting me ready to support this. Also want to thank Lamar Dewberry and Levi Noles and Eugene Brooks with the National Forest in Alabama, and Keelanda Armwood and Annie Hermanson with U.S. Forest Service. They've helped me be prepared to support this community of practice. So thank you, Mikaela. I appreciate the opportunity. So one of the things I'm most passionate about, I love telling people that Alabama is the richest state east of the Mississippi because I love to see the reaction that I get from people when they think about Alabama being the richest state east of the Mississippi. And it takes a minute for it to register, and then I let them know, what is more precious in this universe, gold or life? And life is by far more precious in this universe than gold is. And Alabama has more biodiversity than any other state in the eastern part of the U.S. We're fifth behind Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and California's number one. And so what those states have, they're much larger in size, but they also have in birds and reptiles what we have in fish and amphibians. So we have more species of fish and crayfish and mussels and salamanders than any other state in the Union. And so it's a beautiful state. It's full of resources, natural resources, and 2/3 of the state's covered in forest land. And so as I was growing up in school, I couldn't wait to get out into those forest lands. And I love particularly following creeks to see where they went. And I lived on the Chattahoochee River. And so my days were filled with wandering through the woods, and I was fortunate enough to find my calling in forestry, and I just love this job, and I love giving back and giving students an opportunity to connect with nature because there's so many kids out there that sitting in a school classroom all day long, listening to speakers, looking at textbooks. I was not hardwired for that. I really learned best in nature. And so in Alabama, we support a lot of different efforts. The Society of American Foresters and Project Learning Tree and the Treasure Forest Association. We have a number of different programs where we get school kids out in nature. And we love doing that. And the school children are ecstatic when they do that. I have so many photos of beautiful smiling children out in the woods. It brings my heart joy. But those are events. Those are just a moment in time. And what we really like around the concept of a schoolyard forest is it becomes more than an event. It becomes an experience that they have ownership in, and it becomes part of their community. And so they learn that forests are part of their community. So I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but 2/3 of the state of Alabama is covered in forest land. It's 23 million acres. And if you don't know what an acre is, it's the size of a football field. So if you could imagine 2/3 of the state of Alabama or 23 2.3 million football fields, then, or 23 million football fields, then you know what that looks like. It's also a tremendous opportunity for families. So the majority of that forest land are owned by people just like me and you. And we own that forest land for a number of different reasons. Aesthetics and beauty is number one in terms of objectives. Wildlife is number two. And then it just goes down the list. At the end of the day, a lot of times they want to harvest timber so that they can send their daughter to college because it's an investment for them. So forests play a important role in the livelihoods of families in Alabama. Nearly 500,000 individuals own forest land in the state of Alabama. It also produces 125,000 jobs for people that are getting paid from the forest. So it's a big part of Alabama, our economy and our culture. So we were really grateful to the United States Forest Service, U.S. Department of Agriculture's United States Forest Service. They made available grants, and we applied for and received a grant that allows for us to establish 40 schoolyard forests across the state of Alabama. And at the same time, we can train students on career opportunities in urban forestry. And so students are able to get a certificate that they've been through training that helps them find careers after school in urban forestry. And so this has been an incredible opportunity. And I'm grateful to Annie Hermanson and Keelonda Armwood and Eugene Brooks and everybody at the U.S. Forest Service for making these funds available for us to do this project. Earlier, Mikaela was talking about the resources at the Green Schoolyards of America program, and I would second thank them for making those resources available. We know how to plant hundreds of acres and thousands of acres of trees. We don't know anything about planting a quarter of an acre of trees for education purposes. And the resources that this Green Schoolyards of America program made available have been instrumental in us understanding and getting our brains at a scale and scope for working with school children and schools. And it's helped us communicate to the schools, the administration and the faculty. And the resources are so professional, and all of the facts are backed up with research citations. And so when we go into a school and we share these resources, I print them all out and I put them in a folder and I give it to them. And then our meeting, we walk through each of those documents because they're laid out in a way where you talk about the academic benefits, the health benefits, and it goes all the way up to scaling a schoolyard forest program across your state or region. And so it's been very helpful. The way it's laid out is so professional. It helps them understand, what our vision is. Like I said, we're not great communicators. And so the work that they've done has been very helpful. It also has helped us when talking to partners. So like I mentioned, Alabama is a big forestry state. There's a lot of partners that want to support this effort. They want to be a part of this effort. And that aligns with our vision. We don't want to take grant dollars from the U.S. Forest Service, build these things, and then walk away, and then come back 5 years later and there's tumbleweeds blowing through the forest. We need community partners to step in and be true partners with the schools to help maintain and help facilitate education and help support those schools with this project. And so having those resources that Green Schoolyards America makes available have been very important to bring those partners on board to be involved in the local community there. So just want to thank everybody at that organization for the work that they've done in preparing those materials. So I have been rambling for quite some time, so I want to kind of slow down and give the opportunity. One of the things I will kind of segue in is how important it is to have local ambassadors in the community who believe in the schoolyard forest concept. We have plenty of partners across the state to work with. And the first school that we chose to work with is Central High of Clay County, because Lamar Dewberry, who I'm going to pitch this to in just a second, as Mikaela referenced, he is a tree farmer, but he's also a retired agriscience teacher. So he understands both worlds of forestry and the beauty and the benefits of forests. And he understands the importance of communicating that information to students. And so we sat down together and we talked about this. And I didn't have to sell this to Lamar. He said, "How do I help? How do I sign up and help?" And so having that local ambassador is so important. You would think that this is a no-brainer for anybody, but there's things that come up in those conversations. There's barriers to schools, like maintenance costs and insurance and liability risks and all of those things, that you need a trusted spokesperson to help realize your vision. And having Lamar in the community, who has been a teacher at the school, who is also a forest landowner and taught agri-science, he could say in 5 words what it would take me weeks of communications to convey. So Lamar, I'd just like to pitch it over to you and see if you mind sharing with this group why you're excited about the concept of Schoolyard Forests and why you're involved in this.
Maybe 4 words, Chris. I love the forest. uh, I'm excited about this program, having this opportunity here in our county, being involved in the forest industry, our business, and growing trees, and being involved with students on the high school level, and just seeing what's available for them and how they learn. And an example is, Chris mentioned, we have on our property each year classroom in the forest for 5th graders. And we have these 5th grade students that live in rural Clay County, and we are about 80% forest land, and they come out and they don't understand their surroundings. So that's one thing that was always amazing to me. We'd have 5th graders come out and we'd ask them how old the trees were, the loblolly pines that we had growing out there on the stand, how old they were. And we would get answers like 1,200 years old. And those trees were not much older than those 5th grade students that were out there looking at them. So we knew, hey, there's a problem. And we wanted to start trying to reach out. And like Chris said, this is a one-day event that we deal with these students. And here's an opportunity where we can have an everyday event for these students, and not just for the agri-science students, but for the biology teachers, to talk about water quality here on the school grounds. What happens to all the runoff from the parking lot? And we have that opportunity, and we're excited about it. And when Chris started telling or sharing about the program, I said, I think I know the perfect place to start. But one thing is different here where we are. We have property at the school, on the school property, acreage. We're talking about acreage. We're not talking about just a small lot. And this is a new high school. It's been built about 7 or 8 years, and they're able to grow their program here. So we're excited about it. One of the things that we had hoped to do is get the community involved, and that's what you've got to do. You got to get, for us, local banks. We have companies that buy the timber that comes out of our county, and that timber, where does it go? Those companies that buy, they're willing to help. Some have said that they would donate mulch that we could use to do some walking trails. And there's just so much opportunity here for this program. And what I see is the health benefits from the students being able to go out there and touch the leaves, touch the dust that's on the ground, look at what lives in the water, turn a log over and see the organisms that's under there. So, it's just an exciting time for me. We're just going into this program, just getting started, and we have ideas coming up. Actually, the teacher wanted to do something specifically on the longleaf pines, and longleaf pines is something that's specific to the Southeast, and it's dependent on fire. We start talking about fire, and we think about California. That's fire out there. We think about it usually in negative terms, but for us, just today, as I was coming in, I could smell smoke in the air. the U.S. Forest Service is burning longleaf pines in our county today. And it's part of the management, part of the life system of the longleaf pine. And we're hoping to plant, have been able to get some seedlings, and the teacher here is going to plant those longleaf seedlings and talk about managing them. They are the native species that's in our area. And we're excited about that opportunity to be able to actually have the kids grow these trees. When other schools come for athletic events or whatever, they look out there and they see these trees growing here on the school grounds, and the kids can tell them about it, you know, what's out there. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to the ag teacher here at the program, Mr. Levi Noles, and he's excited. This couldn't happen without Mr. Levi. I'm telling you, he is the one that's the go-getter. When I came in today, he said, you know, I'm going to have to add a few more hours to the day, 24 hours. It's just not enough to get everything done. So I know he was in Montgomery with a group of students last night at a legislative event, and he's a go-getter. We're excited to have him here just as much as we're as excited to have this Schoolyard Forest program. So I'm going to let Levi tell you a little bit about his plans and his goals for his department. So Levi, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, well, I appreciate y'all having me here. And like Mr. Lamar said, we're super excited about the Schoolyard Forest here. We're grateful for the opportunity, Mr. Chris and the U.S. Forest Service and everybody involved. Because once you get into this, you'll see, you know, for future programs, just how many layers there are to it. And really that it's kind of an open canvas from my experience so far, that you can design it to fit the needs for your community and you know, the needs for your program. And so we're really blessed at our school with ample acreage that probably many other locations don't have. And we've got 104 acres that our school is altogether. And we're looking at a lot of different facets, from planting some long leaves, the montane longleafs here on our campus, as this is a natural site for that. We're also looking to add, you know, a pollinator garden, and then we're also looking to enhance our cross country course, and then do some timber stand improvement to some already existing trees. And I've had to step out a time or two, so if I'm repeating anything, Mr. Lamar, you kind of cut me off.
You're doing great.
Okay. So, but one of the things that, you know, as we started planning this, whenever we were approached about the grant, Mr. Lamar had reached out and told us about it. You know, we kind of got our school, our whole campus involved. We sat down and talked. I talked with the principals, and then we talked with our athletic department and our science department. And we've seen how this project is not just going to benefit my ag program and my ag students, whether that be just through, you know, tree ID and our forestry curriculum that we already have existing. It's also going to benefit the science department, and then it's going to benefit our athletics by enhancing the cross country trail. And we've worked really hand in hand with a lot of those. But now we're also seeing ways through our meeting with Chris and Autumn and our architect, that we're going to be able to enhance this to hit on kind of the mental health aspect and the beauty that it brings to a class by having an outdoor classroom. By opening it up, and we're looking at ways to make it, you know, ADA compliant, and having it set up where all of our courses at our school, all the classes, could maybe have a schedule and reserve the outdoor classroom, whether it's English class and they're doing a reading and they are able to go outside and sit in some of these areas that we set up or open up and beautify around campus, so that, you know, there's a ton of studies out there that show how important it is for kids to be outside, breathing fresh air, and not inside. If you can tell behind us, that's our shop behind us, but we're in a white block room. So being able to get those kids outside and experience, you know, the beautiful outdoors the good Lord's blessed us with. And so we're tickled to death about it.
All right. That kind of gives you an idea. And if you can't tell, we're excited about the program. I had a meeting this morning with economic development here in our county, and I told them about what we were doing, and, you know, just trying to share with the opportunities that we have in the education system here in our small rural county. They were impressed at what we were doing, and it's all about moving forward. I believe any school can do this. I don't care if you're in a urban setting or rural setting like we are. It's a program that can really help the students. And one of the reasons it's so important, our county has 13,000 people in the county. And within that county, 2,500 work directly in the forest industry in some way, from all the way from harvesting wood to the cabinet making industry. The largest employer in the United States in the cabinet industry is here in our county. And that's where the majority of people work that's in the manufacturing industry here in our county. So you can see it all ties together what we're trying to do. And we will have elementary school kids coming out where we'll do the classroom forest program, maybe here on campus, to kind of give them a little idea of what to look forward to when they get to the high school, which is the elementary schools are about 5 miles away on both the east and west side of us. And when they come here for classroom in the forest, they can kind of see what's going on in the program for the older students and get excited and maybe improve their preparation in what they want to do when they start trying to choose a career, because we have a lot of opportunities here in our area. And we're working with the Forestry Association also with what they do with workforce development, because at that meeting of economic development that I was at this morning, I told them the average age of the person working in the forest industry here in our county right now on the harvesting side is about 60 years old, 58 to 60 years old. So there's going to be a vacuum there soon coming in our community, and we need to do what we can to prepare for that. So, we're looking at everything from learning science and biology to preparing for workforce in the future. So
can I chime in
yes.
there real quick?
Mhm.
And why he's talking about the slide over a little while, talking about workforce development, as you know, and this may be different depending on what curriculum the school teaches. But I know one of the big things that I think our school system's been excited about, and the state of Alabama as a whole has been excited about, is our Forestry Works program and their credentialing. And so I think this is going to open a lot of doors for our program, because now we have timber stand. There's a sawmill, and there's 3 or 4 more that they're fixing to roll out that I think are going to work hand in hand with this program. And I know as a state, Alabama has pushed, and over the next I think 3 years, they're supposed to roll out that it's going to be required for one of the diplomas that our state has, that each student through a career technical program has to receive a credential in order to graduate. In the past, it's been encouraged, and it's been had a kind of a stepping stone on their diploma. But from what I gather, that's going to become a requirement for those programs. So this is just fueling that fire and giving us an opportunity. And like Mr. Lamar said, it's an opportunity not just for a credential, but for a credential that'll be valuable in our community and our environment, considering that that's where a large majority of our jobs go.
So Mikaela, I see that there's a number of questions in the chat room. Is now the time to shift to the questions, or we could talk about this all day long?
I mean, first of all, I just want to thank you again and applaud you. And, I was inspired the first time I was able to speak with you, Chris, about your work. And you all, all 3 of you, Levi, Lamar, and Chris, have hit on such key components and key benefits, everything from the biodiversity to, workforce development. And I think these are all key things that, are important for our audience to hear. And I think echo many of the same benefits that they're looking to get from, schoolyard forestry and this type of work. And so, yes, we can definitely shift over to the questions, but I just wanted to take a moment to thank you all again, just for sharing so much with so much passion around this work. And we have questions that we've captured in the chat. I can also, Chris, if you see one that you want to
Yeah.
go.
If you don't mind, I'll jump in. So I see one regarding prescribed burning on school grounds. And I'll start, Lamar and Levi, and then let y'all chime in as educators. As a non-formal educator, I have taken school children to the national forest before a prescribed fire, and then taken them back to the forest after a prescribed fire. But not having them on site during a fire on national forest land, that was just a no-go. And we called it Learning to Burn and Burning to Learn. And we provided the students with a lot of different demonstration tools this was Munford Elementary up in Talladega County. And if you've never heard of Munford school system, you should go online and look at it. It's truly a place-based education model. And the U.S. Forest Service has been a big supporter of that school system there. But one of the things that struck me on that project, this is Talladega County, very rural, very dependent on forestry for careers. And I asked the school kids on the bus on the way there, how many of you have ever been to the woods? And one student out of 50 raised their hands. And that student was a child of a forester. And so we might assume being in Alabama, being in rural Alabama, all kids go outside and play in the woods. It's different today than it was in my childhood. We didn't have unlimited streaming TV, we didn't have cell phones, all of those things. And today it's just a different world. And so we're really competing with all of those alternative entertainment sources for school kids. Levi, Lamar, we have done what we call learn and burns, which are small scale prescribed fire demonstrations. We've done that for landowners. I don't know that we've ever done that on a school grounds. So Lamar, Levi, have y'all had experience with that?
To my knowledge, I have not had one on the school yet. We've had, like you said, the Learn to Burns. I've been to several of those. I recently went and got my burn certification through the last school that I was at. And so I think and the school system here in Clay Central, our career tech program has a firefighter program as well. And so we've talked a lot about how this will be another opportunity to kind of, co-curricular work these two programs together, but also provide a hands-on experience in a controlled environment. And one of the things that I think is really neat to our location where we're at is the central part of Alabama has a Central Alabama Prescribed Burn Association. And so I think there's a lot of resources that we can tap in. I think it can be a scary thing whenever you look at it from an administrator side, like you mentioned, with some of the liability. But I think as long as you do it in as safe and as controlled of an environment as you can, I think it's very much an important and real life application that our students can have a part in taking care of.
I think what Levi said is very important. Here at the school, if we do a prescribed fire here, we're looking at 1 acre. The smoke I mentioned earlier coming in the national forest, they're burning over 1,000 acres right now. I don't know how many acres they're burning. So, but the thing is, Levi mentioned that firefighter school, these kids, most of them, if they're here locally, oftentimes the fires that they will go out to fight will be forest fires. Now, we don't have a lot of forest fires, but there will be times when they will have to go fight a forest fire so they can actually get some hands-on experience and see what happens, in a fire setting, in a forestry setting with a fire, which I don't know anywhere they could get that kind of experience, on the high school level. So that's what we'll be doing with that, is just giving them, it'll be a very, controlled environment, very small, but it will give them the opportunity to see, what takes place and why this is done, because a lot of our area where we are here in Clay County is different. I mentioned California and the fires, that comes to our mind when we think about fire so often, but at the same time, here in Clay County, our humidity is so high and conditions are great, and our species of longleaf pine have to have fire to continue to grow. It controls competition, and that's the native species coming all the way back from when the Native Americans were here on this property. They burned every year. That was part of the system. So the native trees, the longleaf pine, just benefit from that fire. And there's such a push to try to bring back our native species here in Alabama and in the Southeast, that it's just a part of that picture that we're working toward.
And one of the big things I think that's important to remember whenever we talk about doing this project and doing it with our classes is it's going to be voluntary based, right? We're not going to pull, Sally, who's sitting on the front row, and shove a drip torch in her hand and say, hey, or have at it. This is going to be there. We're going to have experts on campus with us outside of, just me. And there'll be several walking through, and then we'll offer that opportunity to, who wants to be an observer and who wants to take a part. and let them have that experience to get their hands dirty, per se. And you know, it's the same thing with there's shop programs and welding programs all across the state. And so whenever you look at it from that liability, that instance is there's liability in everything we do, right? A kid could break his leg at football practice or you know, any of these instances. So we have to just make sure that we're doing it in a safe environment and controlling as many of the factors as we can.
So let's see, Rachel, you also asked about how does the fire affect grassy areas? And Lamar was speaking to that in regards to the native grasses. And so burning native grasses only encourages them to grow more healthy. Let's see, Melody asked, given the extensive involvement with U.S. Forest Service, is this work being impacted by the recent cuts at the federal level? And if so, how are you pivoting the work? So I would say we do a lot of work at the foundation. We do conservation that's funded by grants. We do education that's funded by grants. We do forest certification that's also funded by grants. And so anything with federal dollars right now is, of course, being evaluated for alignment with the values of the new administration. And so we're optimistic. The work that we're doing, we think is fantastic work. It supports education. It supports public health. It supports workforce development. And so I would say that we're obviously watching it closely because this is a great project. It's a tremendous opportunity for schools across the state. But we're optimistic. In this process, we see the excitement among businesses, among community members. And so if nothing comes out of this, if worst case scenario, we lose this grant. We have gotten a tremendous amount of education by working with Green Schoolyards America. We've gotten a tremendous network, and we realized that this is something schools want. And it actually, Levi mentioned it earlier, but I just highlight it. This is actually lowering their maintenance costs because they have to typically mow all of that, grassland, and now we're putting trees there that they don't have to mow. So the project is a fantastic project. We are optimistic that we'll continue to go forward. But worst case scenario, if it doesn't, we'll work with other partners to figure out ways to make this work. So I hope that answers your question, Melody. I know a lot of people are affected, and I would just empathize with the change. Change is scary for everyone, but we just focus on what do we know, what can we control, and what do we need to do? What's the next most important thing we can do? Let's see. In a state community, I'm a state community forester in Missouri. You have a webpage or resources that explain how Alabama supports these schoolyard forestry efforts at a state level. First, I would just offer, I'll give you my phone number and you can call me and let's talk through it. So my number is 334-300-3491. And my email is CERWIN@alaforestry, ALAFORESTRY.org. You can go to our website, which is alabamaforestryfoundation.org, but you won't find as much there as if we just build a personal relationship, and I can support you with a lot of different personal experiences and websites and print publications that can help you. And I'd be happy to do that.
Chris, you've been doing an amazing job fielding questions. So thanks for being on top of that. There is a question. Well, I guess you answered that one about, was there one that says, how are you working with other school district sites to develop career tech curriculum that's standardized or working independently? Does the state support this?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Levi mentioned Forestry Works. So this is the Workforce Training Institute, Forestry Workforce Training Institute. And it was founded here in Alabama by our president, Chris Isaacson, and he has a staff that focuses on developing curriculum for high school and middle schools that are interested in careers in forestry and logging and trucking and a number of different urban forestry, as I mentioned. And they have satellite operations in other states across the US. And I believe that they've started one in California. They've got one up in Wisconsin, several across the South. So just Google search Forestry Works, and I think Works is with an X. Look them up. And if also you can call me and email me, and I'll connect you with the staff there. But they do a great job with their trainings. The teachers, and you heard Levi reference it earlier, so you got a testimonial from a real teacher. So they absolutely love those programs.
Someone's just asking for your counterpart or how they might find your counterpart for Northern Delaware.
For Northern Delaware, that's a great question. So I've been to Delaware a couple of times. So I would Google search Forestry Association or Forestry Foundation in Delaware, or State Forestry. State Forestry, I'm certain Delaware has a state forestry agency with the state, and they can connect you with nonprofits that are doing similar type work.
And I will just name that, Chris, I'm so appreciative, and I'm sure others are as well, of your just generosity and sharing your phone number and your email and really connecting, making yourself available to connect with people that have joined us today. And that's what we really want to see, is people cross-pollinating and asking the questions, well, how did you do this? Or I'm stuck on that. Is there a way you figured out, a way to solve that problem? So thank you again for being so generous.
Thank you, Mikaela. I appreciate you and your organization and everything y'all have done for us.
Okay, are there any other questions if someone wants to even unmute themselves?
If you don't mind, I'll just share my screen, and this might help that person, because I did misspeak. It's not Forestry Works with an X. It's Forestry Works, WORKS. This is where you can go and learn about educators and the curriculum that they have. The teachers, I know they come into the training center and get trained on the curriculum, and then they take it back and implement it into their classroom. But this is an incredible resource, and let's just see real quick together. Here are all of the states that have it right now, and they're trying to grow and expand and make it available for all states that have forestry as a potential career. So I hope you go to this website, forestryworks.com.
Thank you, Chris. And Lauren did drop that link in the chat for those of you to stay connected and familiarize yourself with that work if it's available in your state. I think there's a lot to, take in. And as always, we encourage you to watch this again for your own kind of edification and share with your colleagues anything that you learned today. I want to thank Chris, Lamar, Levi again, just for sharing your wealth of knowledge. This was so exciting and informative. Meantime, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Lamar. Thank you, Levi.